So what I find is really finding that balance within how do I nurture my warmth and how do I nurture my strength and my power, right? Is how am I creating pockets in my life to nurture and develop my warmth as a man? Because it's really important to embody that. Because I often think about what if I have a daughter and I'm unable to be warm, right? She brings me into the room and says, like, it's a tea party and gives me a tutu. If I can't just drop into that moment and wear the tutu, man, where have I gone wrong as a man? So it's like I need that warmth. I need to cultivate that, not just for myself, but the people that are closest to me. They need to feel my warmth.
And catch me up, dude. What's going on in your life? What are you working on? What's stimulating you at the moment?
What's stimulating me at the moment is community. I noticed I've gotten really comfortable with the digital space, being on Zoom calls with clients, talking to a phone.
Yeah.
And now I'm very hungry for the in-person, the IRL. So that's really been my biggest focus is how can I create more in-person experiences? How can I sit with people that I feel very connected to through my values, through my principles, and through my work.
Yeah,
So that's
nice.
been a really big focus for me is like, how can I create more of those experiences and also ones that impact people like on a positive level. That's not just me being selfish and I just don't want to sit in my room in front of a computer all day,
Yeah.
but also help people and like have a positive impact on their lives. So that's been my big focus lately. Outside of that, everything else has been good.
Nice. Do you find that like do you ever get to a point with particularly with social media and creating content, do you ever get like sick of it? Do you ever get to the point where you're just like, man, I wish I could fucking do away with this connection to the phone or constantly putting out content to kind of stimulate or whet the appetite of potential customers and clients and stuff like that? I mean, there's for me, there's a knife's edge of like I really want to help and I want to make an impact, but at the same time, I feel the same way in terms of the disconnect and the whole sort of I don't know, almost like a slave to the machine is the kind of feeling that I get. Are you with me?
Yeah. Yeah, totally, totally. I think there's a lot of benefits to using social media, creating the content. But I think at the end of the day, you're still on your phone. You're still thinking about how will this impact my audience? How will this impact the algorithm? Right? Which I think creating content is very different from creating art. Creating content is more of like a science. It's you're thinking about not just what you love about this, but you're also thinking about the algorithm. You're thinking about your audience. You're thinking about these keywords. You're thinking about how can I make somebody watch this within the next 10 seconds and then
Totally.
instantly get hooked into watching the rest of it.
Mm.
That on some level can be fun and exciting, but in truth, it's really draining. It's a draining process, especially if you're
Yes.
doing it all day, every day, and it's just you, which has been most of my effort. And what people see on social media is really my own thought process. So I do feel that level of exhaustion and frustration with it sometimes, because it's for me, it feels a bit it's fun. It can be fun, but it takes me out of the creative process sometimes.
Mm.
Because I have to
Yeah.
be so analytical. I'm thinking about how this should I put it here? You're clipping a video. It can feel a little bit disingenuous sometimes, even if the message is impactful and it's genuine to you. When you have to kind of dilute it into this little package thing that's going to impact and resonate with the audience, resonate with the algorithm. I think from there, it's just you're no longer your creativity, your heart isn't there. It's just your mind making sure that all of
Yeah.
these things are in place. So for me, I feel both. I feel the love and the passion for it, and I also feel the tug and the exhaustion and the frustration sometimes.
Mm. How do you balance yourself out, Jeremiah? Like if you're as a man, do you find yourself wanting to be alone and then also wanting the connection? How do you manage that process without kind of I don't know, like having it be almost something that you're trying to force upon your life. You know, like when you if you're used to just being a solopreneur, you like to do things that are you like your own time, your own space, but at the same
Mm.
time you also yearn for the connection. Like, does that make sense? I kind of float
Yeah.
between I love being around people. I love having that closeness, that interaction, the connection, the touch, the feel, all the rest of it. But I need my space. Otherwise, that too becomes almost
Hmm.
a exhaustive exercise over a period of time. I get tired from, I don't know, almost being entertained or being an entertainer.
Yeah, yeah, I think the balance is important. And for me, what I found the balance works with me is I have to be honest that I'm very much a hermit. I'm very introverted. I can spend hours, days by myself.
Yeah.
And even in relationships, after a relationship is over, I take almost 2, 3 years. It's been pretty consistent. After a relationship ends, I take 2, 3 years by myself just to recharge. But other people are
Really?
different. Sometimes for them, it's 6 months. Sometimes it's them for a year.
Sure.
Sometimes people can't even stay with themselves after a relationship is over without jumping into another one. They kind of have this like monkey bar approach of one person, one relationship to the next.
Yeah.
That's never been me. So what I've noticed for me is that I have to move towards the things that I resist if I want to grow and mature, because that's where my edge is. So as a person that's really comfortable in his solitude, I can spend months by myself. I can spend weeks just sitting in a room by myself, meditating, having my hobbies and things that connect me to me. I can do that. That's my comfort zone actually, right?
Wow.
So that means for me then what I resist most is going out and entertaining people or being entertained by people or engaging with a group or a large audience of people or it's a gathering of some sort, if it's an event. And that for me is where I find resistance often. And I can talk myself out of going out all the time. As
Yeah,
soon
for
as I get
sure.
the message, I'll feel really hyped up and energetic, like, yeah, I'll meet you there at 6:30. And then I'll talk
Sure.
myself out of it like 30 minutes before. I'm like, really? Do you want to go? You're going to spend
Yeah,
some money when you
right.
get there too. You know that, right? And
Yeah.
so I always, because that part of me that's very comfortable being alone can always talk me out of it. So that's where my edge is. And that's where I find my balance is actually taking the time to prioritize those pockets of connection where it's not just with me, it's not just with my hobbies, it's not just with my practices. It's actually going out into the field, connecting with friends, connecting with the community, even strangers at times. And
Hmm.
that's where I find myself actually having a sense of balance in my life. Because if it's all me, sometimes I have a hard time then re-emerging back into society in a way and engaging with people. So that's where I notice like, is this moment calling for me to spend time with myself, be a little lone wolf for maybe even a couple days or a weekend?
Sure.
Or do I actually need to be in connection? Because that's where that sense of sometimes I need a sense of like I need to soothe, right? I need to soothe. I need to feel close. Sometimes I might internalize that as, oh, you need to spend more time with yourself. But for
Hmm.
me, often it's like, no, go see your family. Like, go check on your friends. Call up
Yeah.
one of your brothers and have a call.
Sure.
That's actually going to bring you the connection you're looking for. It's not always Jeremiah just sitting with Jeremiah, you
Hmm.
know? So that's where for me is the balance, just noticing those moments that come up and noticing the resistance to it and finding ways to override it and lean into it, even though it might, bring me some sense of discomfort.
Yeah. It's an interesting paradox, hey, because like uh listening to your work, a lot of the sentiment that I hear uh, over a long period of time is having the ability to sit with certain feelings and emotions and even in darkness and kind of like just be alone with it, be in a moment where you can take time to process and understand why you're feeling the feelings that you're coming up with your body. Whereabouts in the body do you feel it? And working through that process without needing someone else to distract you from the
Mhm.
I guess internal healing and awareness that you need to become you need to bring forward, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what you're sort of explaining is it's almost the exact opposite when you're in a social setting or you're in a with a connection. You need to sit in that moment of being in a crowd or being
Hmm.
around a certain environment or something like that. It's
Hmm.
almost the opposite. Yeah, let's sit and work through these emotions and feelings because I have the same sort of experiences at times. It's just like, oh, I got to work myself up to get into something. And I'm like, yeah, no, let's just give it a shot. I'd rather stay home, but let's give it a
Right.
go.
Right.
And then I get there and I'm looking for a fucking exit the moment that I walk in. I'm just like, man,
You're right.
in a half an hour or in an hour, I'm bailing from this place. So I just want to
You're right.
have my little like entry point in there, play around a little
You're
bit
right.
and then jet as soon as I possibly can.
Right. Just so you can tell yourself, well, you used to try it.
Yeah, exactly right. I
And
gave it a shot. These aren't my
yeah,
people,
give it a
so I
shot.
just go home.
Right. Right. And you go home after. So yeah, I think it's still that practice of sitting with discomfort, being with the discomfort, because I think that discomfort that you and I might find in a large audience is the same discomfort that somebody might find while sitting at home with themselves with no phone, no TV on,
Yeah,
or nobody entertain them. It's the same discomfort. And you and I might have a narrative that says, oh, these aren't our people. We need to leave. Somebody else's narrative is, oh, I shouldn't be spending this time by myself. I actually need to check on my mom. I actually need to check on my best friend. And then they ring the phone. So that's their
yeah,
escape route. Everyone has their own escape routes. But again, I know it's an escape route if I'm attempting to get away from some level of discomfort. So for me, my discomfort is, oh my God, I'm here, I'm out, I'm everywhere but at home right now.
yeah,
And I have to be with that. And oftentimes there's a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of wisdom about the space that I'm in. Maybe there is something about the people here that are not my people. And I need to ask those uncomfortable questions to myself. Sometimes it's about me being open to allowing myself to be seen, allowing myself to be vulnerable, allowing myself to be witnessed by the people around me, right? So all of it is valuable information if I sit with the discomfort, you know.
yeah. So true. It's I find probably just listening to you speak, the balance that I think would be more of an acceptable environment, I guess, or something that's conducive to me feeling good is if it's in an outdoor setting. So if I'm in like I don't know, a busy restaurant or a club or something like that, it's kind of like it's an overwhelming feeling. Maybe I'm picking up on whatever the environment is. It's just not my jam.
Right,
But if
right,
we're outside, if we're at the beach or if we're in nature in to some aspect, or even if it's at a nice cafe, but it's by the water or whatever it is, like I'm all for it. It's almost like as long as I can take that same community aspect, but put it in a place that is conducive to me feeling better. I think that's I don't know. That's my exception to the rule, I suppose.
yeah, yeah, same here, same here. If nature is involved, you'll see me there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Hey, I know I've been listening to a bunch of your podcasts about relationships, which I always find intriguing. I like your perspective on things and how you kind of explain certain situations in a very pragmatic way, and you uncover a lot of feelings, which you can just tell by listening to you. You're very well thought out. You've kind of had time to think about all of these situations, which I find a joy to listen to.
Thank
But
you.
I wanted to ask you, like, what being in this space and doing the work that you have done in yourself, what are the biggest challenges that you face in relationship, like an intimate relationship?
The biggest challenge I personally face when it comes to intimate relationships is discerning between whether somebody is a great partner or whether I'm projecting greatness and goodness onto them.
What do you
And
mean?
what I mean by this is through doing so much work on yourself, I think oftentimes we become really good at being able to be optimistic towards love. I think some people become pessimistic, but for minds, there's an optimism developed. And some
Mm,
people say this as like, well, now you do so much work on yourself and you can basically fall in love with anybody, right? I've heard this said in different ways is that if you're really open to it, if your heart is really open, it's really attuned, you can basically fall in love with anybody. So this became an issue for me because through seeing so much about myself, seeing so much and understanding so much about relationships, what I've been able to do is like learn to hold somebody's humanity,
Hmm.
learn to be present with that. And so when I'm interacting in my intimate relationships, what I tend to do is then project all of that goodness when there is sometimes things that just aren't compatible. They're just not compatible. It's not a moment to convince myself to be more patient, to convince myself to be more loving, or to convince myself that maybe that I'm projecting too much onto this space. I'm putting too much pressure on this person. Maybe that is a reflection of the lack of compatibility that's there, the lifelong compatibility for the larger vision I have for my life and my marriage and my relationships.
Mm.
So it's for me, it's become something that is difficult to navigate when you can see so much, right? You can see so much, and then you start to project, you psychoanalyze, but sometimes from a positive perspective rather than a negative one of like, oh, I know why you did that.
Right.
Imagine knowing the reason why certain people do the things they do,
Hmm.
why the behaviors they have are not really a reflection of their toxicity, but their need for love, their craving for connection or intimacy with you. But it's just the inability to communicate that well. And so for me, always being in this coaching hat, what I find is I often bring that hat into my intimate relationships. And so then I'm a coach holding space for somebody that I'm supposed to be building something with.
Mm.
So it's an abuse of the archetype. The coach, the teacher is an archetype that is supposed to be present within a classroom. My dating life is not a classroom. It's a field where I play, I learn, I grow, I enjoy my connections. I don't need to be a teacher. I don't need to be a coach. I don't need to wear this hat. So I find myself then holding space for somebody the way I would a client. And so in that, I lose sight of so many things that are actually incompatible with my larger vision. So I find that is it's a struggle when you are often in a space, maybe 9 hours of your day. You develop a certain communication style, right? An
Yeah, for
understanding.
sure.
I find this with lawyers that I work with. I find this
Yeah.
with founders and
Yeah.
managers that I work with.
Real estate
They
agents,
adapt the
stuff like that. They've got a
real
vocabulary
estate
that
agent.
they all use. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. You adapt that communication style and it helps you in your work. And sometimes it's very hard to not bring that communication style into your love life.
Mm.
So lawyers, I find, are often combative, not intentionally. It's just because their brain is always operating through this one archetype. And so when they start going back and forth with their wives, they can't help but to constantly bring new points. Oh, but baby, did you look at this way? Did you look?
Sure.
And they're in the lawyer hat when they're just supposed to be present. They're maybe supposed to be holding space. So for me, that isn't that's not my issue. I'm not a lawyer, so it's not the combativeness. It's not the I can present a better argument than you. It's how can I hold space here? What am I not
Mhm.
seeing about you? How can I, love you even better? Right? Which is a great thing to have. I'm not complaining,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it's about knowing, the time and the place for everything, right? I can't assert a certain archetype into every single situation. That's abusing the archetype. And then it becomes overdeveloped. And then at the end of the day, then it's just a shadow. It's just a shadow then. So for
Yeah,
me, it's
right.
really about dialing that back and actually just bringing Jeremiah forward without the
What do
coach,
you
without
mean
the
by the
teacher.
shadow thing, Jeremiah? What does that mean?
I define shadow as any aspect of ourselves that is overlooked, shamed, dismissed, or overdeveloped.
Hmm.
So, for example, something as, let's say, innocent as my desire to teach, right, can become a shadow if I rely on that too much and I circle my identity around it.
Right.
So then my desire to teach becomes a shadow, and that might manifest as a know-it-all.
Yeah, got it.
That's the shadow of a teacher, then, a know-it-all.
Mm,
Meaning I don't create space for anybody else's intelligence or their wisdom. I walk into a room and I'm not asserting my intelligence. I'm trying to get my intelligence to dominate the room, to dominate the conversation.
got it.
And I know that because I'm not making space for anybody else. I'm not making space for feedback or pushback. This
Mm,
lets me know this is a shadow. So in its essence is a very positive thing, right? The desire to teach, the desire to help people see what they cannot see, right?
yeah, for sure.
But then when it's coming from a wound, maybe it's coming from an insecurity, maybe this is the only place in my life where I feel the sense of power and validation, it quickly becomes a shadow. And now people don't feel safe around this aspect of me. They feel belittled, they feel dismissed, they feel diminished by my presence or my intelligence in this
Yeah, yeah.
context. So now it's a shadow.
And it would be interesting dynamic too, because it's like, I don't know if you've ever been in a room with like a psychic or a tarot card reader or something like that. You know, the thought that comes into your mind is like, fuck, I wonder if they know what I'm thinking, you know? So you start to
Mhm.
self-censor like thoughts, and you immediately go out of your genuineness about like just being in the moment, and then you start to overanalyze and overthink your own position. I guess maybe a challenge might be that in the coaching space that you're in, you're already like two moves ahead anyway. You can see what's coming before it even comes. And maybe you might even be in a position where if you expand on that shadow where you like to be the solver of the problems, you know, like, oh, I can fix this, you know what I
Right,
mean? I
right,
can heal you straight away. And then you've kind of got this dynamic of like I'm always fixing you, like you know we're working on your side of things, right? But you would
right,
have to be
right.
in a position, Jeremiah, where you're in the space that you're in. You would be attracting partners that are also in the same sort of space or field or awareness about their own journey and shadows and inner child healing and all that kind of stuff. Is that not what's happening in your life or has been happening in your life since you've been coaching and doing all this kind of work?
Yeah, it's been great because you meet people that, like you said, have developed themselves in really beautiful ways and have matured in a lot of areas. And the struggle I find, and I think a lot of men that also do a lot of work on themselves, it's that at the end of the day, I'm still dating women. That's just my orientation, right? That's my drug of choice, women, right? Oftentimes there's a lot of expectations that I hold myself to, and I know society does, but I know that because society does, the women that I'm dating have also internalized that. So when I say this archetype is being abused, or I'm holding a lot of space, where I'm processing a lot of things, um, it's also filtered through the fact that I'm a man, right?
Hmm.
And so we're talking about the fixer, we're talking about the problem solver. As a man, that is something that is applauded and encouraged in me to solve problems, to fix things, to lead in my life, to hold space. Oftentimes, it's rare for a man to feel held. He's often holding space for others because women rely on men, children rely on men, men rely on themselves,
Hmm.
men rely on themselves. So that's just the nature of how things are. So, because of that, now you're in this space where you've built an emotional toolkit as well as your resources, as well as your intelligence, maybe even your physical body. You start to almost feel like Superman. There's no emotion I can't hold space for.
Hmm.
There's nothing I can't process with somebody. There's no trauma or wound that could show up that I can't stand strong and grounded and centered through as she unfolds and she unravels. So as men, I think we don't really have that permission to unravel the way that women do. And so it's a constant balance of yes, I know all of these things, and yes, I can hold this level of space. And also, where is my boundaries? Where are my edges? Where are the things that feel like I'm parenting a person, where I'm coaching a person.
Mm.
And so even though the women are very developed and have done their inner work, at the end of the day, they are still women that oftentimes are going to look for their man to be a leader, to hold space, to provide containment, right? And to give them the safety to be in their feminine.
Are you over 40, successful but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
Oftentimes, the feminine comes with unraveling. It means let me be messy, let me be in my shit, let me be in my emotions and feelings without judging me or without, you know, being afraid that you might punish or leave me. All of that comes with the woman. Despite how much work she's done, she cannot override
Yeah.
that desire. It's evolutionary biology. She needs that level of space held for her to actually relax into the space and land there. But as a man, I'm actually seen as the one that has to hold the space then.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly pushing against that conditioning, despite how much work I do, and I think any man does, we still find ourselves at that dynamic in some kind of way. And I think the more skilled we are, and I think the more skilled and resourced the woman is, it doesn't feel like pressure after them. It feels more like a devotional practice, right?
Hmm.
But I think the first layers of it often feel a bit draining, frustrating, and codependent, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I think with it, mhm,
Yeah, I think like what resonates with what you're saying with me is, I guess, like my own evolution over the last 5 years at least. You're you're working on yourself to the degree that you go, as a man, what version of Adrian do I want to project into the world, and how do I step into that particular version of myself? And so when you think about the I guess the trend of this, masculine man, feminine woman, and you take when you take all of that into consideration, once you become aware of it, it's interesting to find that place within yourself, which is more stoic, more calm, sort of a facts over feelings kind of guy, but able to understand how both roles play in the body, in the mind, and things like that. You start to, like, for me personally, in terms of mindset, growth, business, health,
mhm,
whether I'm doing something for my body, something that is hard work, something that's overcoming a degree of almost like pain, like a pain threshold, whether it be
mhm,
MMA or lifting weights or cold water or whatever it might be, right? So if you take all of that into a bundle and go, this is the man that I'm becoming, and now what I want to attract is this beautiful feminine, female,
right,
but
right.
when you're in the throes of it, you realize that that real feminine, that beautiful femininity is it's quite chaotic, right? So like
Very
it's
much.
kind of messy, you know what I mean? Like it's really wild. It can the pendulum can swing from one way to the next like really rapidly. And
Mhm,
so,
mhm,
whilst you've got this beautiful flow, loving, vibrant energy, you've also got this sort of almost chaotic mess that you need to navigate through at the same time. So you think you want a feminine woman, but you don't quickly realize it's like there's parts of this I didn't want to fucking sign up for. It's not
right.
exactly all kind of rosy in that respect.
Mhm,
So I guess from each part, like they have to understand just how that internal awareness of how you both operate. Am I
Mm.
making sense so far?
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Like you said, I also see the feminine as embodied chaos, not
Hmm.
as a negative thing. It's just looking at the ocean. The ocean is embodied chaos. It doesn't mean the ocean is bad. It just means it has the ability to nurture life, right? It can crash. It can tear things apart. It can even be scary at times.
Mm.
That is the feminine. That is the feminine. So we learn to hold both. We learn to hold all expressions of the feminine. And I think at times as men, when we really get equipped in channeling these more stoic aspects of ourselves, this what I call this energy, this of the dark masculine, right? We get really in touch with that and we learn how powerful and potent that is in holding space, in leading, in penetrating our woman, in being able to hold space for her unraveling and for her chaos. The dark masculine is really there that provides that level of safety, right? It's the one that goes to as far as he can towards the edge and meets the feminine there. That's where the feminine stands. It's at the edge of where we know ourselves, I think is what Carl Jung says, right?
Hmm.
So from that, we I think oftentimes it can we can make up a story of like, now I can hold anything, as I was saying earlier. Now I can hold anything. And sometimes we miss that there's still a level of respect required within a relationship. And part of containment is providing parameters and boundaries, right? Without that discernment, our leadership is just codependency. I think I'm holding space. I think I'm being a leader, but I'm really just being codependent. I think I'm in a polarity dynamic, but I'm in a dance of codependency here. So it's not about, I don't think it's about what does the woman want to see from me? What does she need from me? Because if I follow that far too long, what happens is I begin to live in a woman's frame. And so
Mm.
whatever
Can you
she
flesh that
needs
out
me
for
to
me?
be,
What
I
does that
begin
mean?
to
Give me an example of like how codependency shows up and what was that last phrase you said? Like living in a woman's frame?
I begin to live inside my woman's frame,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So that means my identity is orbited around what she wants. So the example of this is the mantra that a lot of um, approval addicts or nice guys often state is happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Happy wife is the frame. Whatever my wife needs to be happy, that's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to become.
Hmm.
My happiness is completely, I forfeit that. I forfeit my needs, I forfeit my desires, I forfeit my wants, and I forfeit my boundaries in the process then. Because it's about what does she need to be happy. So many men feel, oh, my wife is upset at me. I need to go buy her a gift. I need to take us on vacation. I need to get us a bigger house. I need to marry her then. That'll make her happy. Whatever it is, there's always this vision around what she wants you to become, which is always fluctuating, which is always changing, right? As I was saying, it's the chaos embodied.
Yeah.
So if I'm fixating my journey, my identity on what a woman wants me to be, I'm never going to get to know myself in that relationship. More than likely, I'm going to lose myself in that relationship. So I think what I find consistent throughout most thriving relationships is that when a woman lives within a man's frame, the relationship often thrives. The relationship often thrives.
Mm.
And that frame includes his principles and includes his values. Because, like I said, women rely on men, children rely on men. That household that this family lives in is often led by the man's values, right? His morals and his principles. And if those aren't present, then oftentimes that household collapses into, you know, chaos, really,
Hmm.
and a loss of the father archetype, right? So what I find that a lot of relationships have on a consistent basis that really do well is that the man is holding a certain frame, that he is capable of leading. And his woman doesn't mean she doesn't lead in her own way, but there is a sense of she yields, she respects, she admires her man, and she looks up to him. If I look up to my woman, it's very, very different. It's a very different dynamic versus when she's looking up to me. And so that's why I encourage men to find themselves and find out what are your principles, what's your North Star, what is your mission, and developing this ladder of hierarchy. What are the four things that are more important to you than your woman? And a
Mm.
lot of men can't name four things. Actually, often when my life is orbiting around my woman and what she wants, she's at the top. And then comes my mission. And then there may be my family. Then there may be my friends. And there may be my hobbies.
Yeah.
That hierarchy will always lead to codependency. It will always find a man exuding neediness,
Yeah. Wow.
almost feeling overpowered and almost neutered in his relationship.
Hmm.
Like, damn, bro, where's your spine? Where's your backbone? This woman is walking all over you,
Yeah.
right? So I think women in their nature actually don't want that dynamic. They resent. I worked with so many women that resent being in a dynamic like that. They don't like it. They don't like it. They really prefer the one where the man leads, he's capable, he's protective, he's resourceful, provides that level of provision. And in a sense, she is living within his frame. She feels contained by him.
Mm. Yeah, that resonates. I mean, I think maybe there might be some women listening to this that would find some internal resistance to that thought. You know, they might perhaps assume that the man would be self-centered, selfish, but I do recall a couple of personal conversations and conversations with clients in workshops where ultimately what the woman is saying is that I want a man who has direction, you know, and that is part of it. It's part of his own ability to lead himself and to prioritize his health and to prioritize his finances and to be in control of his life. And it's an attractive quality. And I think when you break it down the way that you eloquently put it, it shifts your energy, it shifts your perspective and paradigm of relationship. And you're not saying, Jeremiah, like to the woman needs to be subservient and a,
Mhm.
you know, 50s wife that stays home and just does what she's told. You know, you don't want to become a Dorothy doormat in that respect, right? You just got this dominant Dan, Dorothy doormat type of relationship. But there is a healthy level of respect to say that, you know, my man's on a mission and I'm here to support him, and vice versa. I mean, like, you know, my woman's, you know, got her own business and she's, you know, kicking goals and, you know, like there's so many beautiful aspects of her and what she wants to achieve in life. But at the same time, I think like the dynamic that we've created is that there is that level of appreciation, admiration, respect, honoring that, yeah, you have your time to yourself, you have your things that you need to do. There's a path that you need to be on. And she does a great job of guiding me back to that path when she feels like I'm not truly in alignment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And yeah, I think it's a beautiful dance when people are not attempting to compete with each other.
Mm,
And I'm not coming from a story of, oh, when you take the lead, you must think that I'm less than you. Or when my wife handles, let's say, a call or manages something in our relationship, that means she's emasculating me. If I'm not rooted in these insecurities, these old, outdated narratives, and I'm actually really grounded and centered in myself, and my woman is, It's a beautiful dance because it's about what are our complementary strengths? What
Mm.
are you naturally good at? And what am I naturally good at? And how do those come together to help us walk towards or take a step towards our greater vision? Because that's what we're doing here. But if I'm trying to create some level of equality in our relationship, which a lot of people confuse for sameness, people say equality, but what they're looking for is sameness.
Mhm.
For example, a man might say, well, why does she get to unravel, Adrian, and like be in her chaos that way? Why don't I get to do that? I thought this was about equality. I should be able to cry on her shoulder. I should be able to tell her about my day and just whine and complain all day.
Mhm.
They're looking for sameness. That's not equality because equality means that I respect our differences. I respect our differences. I respect our different strengths and I respect what nature has implanted in me to feel called and pulled to do. And so we blame society and say that, well, the reason as a man you want to be a fixer, you want to be a leader, you want to be the breadwinner is because patriarchy has taught you that.
Mhm.
But that desire within me is exploited by patriarchy. It's abused by patriarchy.
Sure.
Just as a woman's desire to have children, to be a mother, to often maybe with the women that want to stay at home, patriarchy didn't implant that. It can't take responsibility for that. It
Mhm.
can't take responsibility for that. That desire is seeded by nature. I can't take and I can exploit it. I can see a woman's desire to want to have children, to want to have a family, and then I can exploit and abuse that to my own agenda, right? But I can't take responsibility for where that actually comes from. So I think as men, when we can lean into what we're naturally called to do, what actually comes naturally to me, what I find most joy in doing, which for me is leading, which is teaching. I find myself I was just with my family
Mhm.
in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and I hadn't seen them in like over a year. And I spent all this time with them. I was there for about a month, and it made me so happy. I found so much fulfillment
Mhm.
in taking my sister here, uh, you know, getting her to get her nails done, having some time together. I took her out on this date where I was like, this is an official date. I want you to notice how a man leads when he's on a date, right? And I was like, take notes, ask me questions. What do you think? What do you think is off about this? And I'll put myself in a certain position of like, what is off about this? And I loved it, right? I
Mhm.
loved being in that space. And I had the same thing with my brothers. There's a lot of guidance. I was able to talk to them about certain things that they're dealing with and they're faced with. And then when I was with my mother, to be honest, I felt like a father. My mother
Really?
felt like my daughter. My mother felt like my daughter. And at times during my childhood, that was very overwhelming and that felt wrong in a way, right?
Mhm.
But as I've grown, as I mature, I noticed that my mother is still a woman at the end of the day. And at times she will feel like my daughter. At times she will need my guidance. At times she will look for me to lead. And that's completely fine. I actually find fulfillment in being in that dynamic with her, with my family. So again, these are the things that bring me most joy, right? So I find that in these relationships, we have to lean into the things that come natural to us. And if there's any resistance to that, exploring where those stories come from, because there's a common thread between any woman that feels resistance towards a man taking that role in the relationship. And it's having a father that abused that or was completely
Mhm.
devoid in that, it was completely absent in that role, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes that woman having to step in and be that oftentimes develops a level of comfort and a level of control and a level of safety and predictability as well. So then being able to rely on somebody when your first man and image or example failed you in that way is very hard, especially if you haven't grieved that relationship. So I find there's always resistance there naturally. But if
Hmm.
we dig into the resistance, we often find a lot of old stories and unprocessed grief and hurt from exes and old relationships.
Yeah.
But beneath that, what I find is okay, once this is cleared, or I feel a little bit more spacious here, there's a yearning to receive that. And there's almost a comfort in receiving it. And also for a man, providing it in his relationships.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you, what do you find is like for men and the men that you work with, like what do you find is part of the main parts of the problem in terms of them not being the true masculine man that they desire to be? What's poisoning themselves or getting in their way or becoming part of the problem in terms of their own growth towards becoming a masculine man? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So the thing that's preventing a lot of men from becoming the masculine man that they know and probably fully capable of being are two things. One, it's the lack of examples and the absence of the role models.
Hmm.
That is a huge one. It's very difficult to chart a path towards healthy, embodied, mature masculinity if you don't have examples that show you what's possible. If you don't have examples that show you what's possible, you're doomed to recreate the past. So if I don't have those examples, then my past might be my abusive father. It might be my people pleasing father. It might be my absent father. It might be, all these red pill prophets that are out there. That's what I then rely on. So when I don't have that support, what happens is a man is then raised by the culture. If I don't have those examples, I don't have those role models, I don't have that village or tribe of elders where I can lean on and experiment and go through that rites of passage, then what happens is I'm informed by the culture. I'm informed by the culture of masculinity. That becomes my father. And then it guides me. So the current culture of masculinity is led by red pill prophets.
Hmm.
You have your Andrew Tates, you have all these guys that are little spawns of an Andrew Tate or the rhetoric and ideology that comes from certain things that he preaches and teaches. And it's helpful for a lot of men in some ways. But I think men that are really integrated can see through the veil. It can see through the aggressive and hyper masculine embodiment. It can see through the cars. It can see through this pursuit towards exiting the matrix. It can see through it.
Hmm.
You're not creating more leaders. You're creating more soldiers. And a soldier is always a pawn to somebody's bigger game, right? The soldier doesn't follow his heart. So if you're really led and informed in a way that's actually bringing you towards yourself as a man, you're always going to find yourself connecting back to your heart. So a soldier doesn't follow his heart. He can
Hmm.
go to war today, kill innocent children. He's neglecting his heart. He forfeits his heart, right? So because we don't have those examples, it's very hard for men to chart a path towards what that masculinity could look like embodied through them. Because it will always look different man to man, but it will be channeled through you. And then the second piece is our relationship with our mother. The mother wound is really impacting how men show up. And it's the missing link to this conversation around misogyny. Men aren't being honest about the first woman that they've loved, that abandoned, betrayed them, or felt like she may have abused her power in some kind of way.
Hmm.
And so oftentimes we might see teachers speaking, but oftentimes a lot of these men speak from their mother wound. They have very, very fragile views of masculinity, and they also have very, very disempowering views of femininity, right?
Hmm.
A woman should be this, a woman should be that, a woman should submit to you in this way, and you can use her this way. It's okay to cheat. All these things are my first wound with a woman is my mother. And if I don't understand what that is, two things happen is I become a replication of the boy that she needed me to be as a child. So oftentimes, mom wants the boy to be obedient. She wants him to follow her directions. So a lot of the nice guy embodiment we see are just guys still seeking their mother's approval.
Yeah, wow.
The boy that gained mom's approval is not the man that's going to be respected in society. And it's definitely not the man that's going to be respected by women, right?
Mhm.
But I can't see what's in front of me. I'm still seeing my mother and the fact that she needed me to shut up or not take up too much space or not remind her of her exes or my father or her wounds around the masculine. I'm
Mm.
still trying to protect her from that pain. So my identity is still wrapped in that, right? So that's one embodiment. And the other is the aggressive pendulum swing to the opposite then. Maybe I was that boy and now I'm rejecting all of that. But I've gone to the extreme because I still haven't processed the rage. I haven't processed the grief. I'm still upset at my mother for maybe micromanaging my relationship to my authenticity, not protecting me from maybe my abusive father or not helping me have a relationship with him. Whatever the story is, I need to process it. If I don't, I'll never find what masculinity could look like embodied through me in a way that feels authentic and a way that feels genuine. So these are two things that impact men a lot. The lack of role models and examples, and the avoidance of our mother wound and how it impacts us and touch every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, wow. Where do you begin though? Like, it'd be confusing for a lot of men out there, no matter where you're at in life, because yeah, I mean, that whole, what do you call it? The red pill, um,
Red Pill
ego,
Prophets.
yeah, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's just absolutely flooding the socials, and it has been for quite some time. I hear some of even my kids, like I hear them say certain things, which is, it has that Andrew Tate sort of spin on it, the
Right.
alpha and sigma and all this shit that they that they start to talk about, whereas
Yeah.
yeah, like it would be confusing. And I think I find personally that the mother wound is something that I find probably the most challenging to uncover. Like there's a large part of my life going forward which always had something going on with my dad, and I can
Mm,
pinpoint very, very easily as to what that is. My dad, with all
mm,
his faults, has got, I've taken away from him some beautiful aspects of creativity and all those sorts of things. Like the ability to speak, play music, entertain,
mm,
present, all that kind of stuff. Those sorts of things. Salesmanship, all the rest of it. It's all my dad's, right?
mm,
But there is a large part of my later life which I've yet to sort of completely unravel, which I've found interesting, that a lot of things have been coming up with my mum, in terms of, I don't
mm,
know, just the way that we interact. There's certain parts of me now that won't tolerate particular behavior, or I'll get easily offended by a particular. It's hard to explain. It's like, if I feel like I'm being belittled or babied, or I feel like I've
mm,
been casted as like you don't know what you're doing, or
mm, mm,
it's almost not so much you don't know what you're doing. It's just like, oh well, uh, you know, that's just the way you are, and that kind of thing. It's
right.
almost an undertone of I've really struggled to kind of explain the feeling of I don't know.
But I know it. I know it.
You
Yeah,
know what
I
I
know the
mean?
feeling
It's
very
just
well.
kind of like
Yeah.
you're lesser than, or you're an idiot, or you're just, don't make out to be that I'm some sort of fool in this sort of thing.
Right,
Like it's
right.
it's almost playing down a particular part of your character or your
Mm,
personality to the point where it's just it's almost laughable. I don't know if I'm making sense,
mm,
but I've only really started to notice it in the last like 5 years. Like I'm
mm,
47, so I'm just like,
mm,
why didn't this come up? Whereas all of my life I've had this chip on my shoulder with my dad, and we've had
mm,
fucking fights and we've not talked for like sometimes I think the longest time we didn't talk for was like nearly 13 years.
mm,
It was just
mm,
heaps and heaps of moments like that. And I can think to those, I can go way back to like being a kid and I can think of those moments. But anyway,
mm,
that's just a little excerpt into my personal, battles
mm.
with all of that kind of stuff. But I do find it very challenging on the mother side. I find it like it's sneaky. I don't know how else to explain it.
Right.
Am I making sense to
No,
you or am I babbling?
sneaky is the perfect word to describe the mother wound, especially the what I just like to give name to is the mother-son wound, right? The
Hmm.
relationship that we have as sons to our mothers is very sneaky to detect because for two reasons. One, it's that our mother is still a woman at the end of the day. And so as young boys or as men, we still feel the desire to protect her. That will almost never go away, despite how upset we are at her. Maybe 30 years into our lives, we don't feel connected to her. On some level, we still have this desire to protect her. And sometimes some men create that as their entire mission in life is to protect their mothers. They succeed. I've heard so many stories from different NBA players. Even LeBron James is a really great example. A lot of his pursuit towards greatness was protecting his mother from poverty, from struggle, and basically giving back to her everything that she had given him. It's almost impossible to ride that desire to protect our mothers, especially if as young boys, our mothers looked to us in moments where she felt sad, she felt powerless, or she felt defeated in some extent, right? That image of her sad is ingrained into our psyches as young boys. And we want to protect her from that sadness. We want to protect her from that grief. We want to protect her from whatever it is bothering her. So then we curate an identity sometimes as boys. We become the golden child. We achieve at high levels. So our mother will always be proud of us. She'll never be upset or disappointed in me. Or I become this mascot where I'm always the one making her happy. I'm always the one making her laugh. And then I become the funny guy in all my friendships, my work life, my career. I'm charismatic. Everyone feels safe around me. But I'm very lonely inside. Because in truth, I'm just still playing out a character that I played for my mom. So it's
Hmm.
very sneaky because it how can I judge and criticize the desire to protect my mother? How can I
Yeah.
judge and criticize that? Right? It's a beautiful thing. And then the second piece is that's coupled with the fact that addressing your mother wound as a man or even for women is very taboo in most cultures. Because the mother is an archetype that is both over glorified and unappreciated. It's a weird paradox.
Sure.
You can never say anything bad about your mother. The moment you try to address a mother wound and say, well, my mom did give me love, but the moment you add that but, you interject that, somebody will look at you with some look of disgust or disdain.
Sure.
But you only have one mother, Adrian. How could you say that about your mother? These are the narratives that come up that then lead us to suppress that desire to address the things that weren't perfect, right? None of our childhoods were perfect. Our parents had flaws; they had limitations. But because the culture does not permit to address the mother wound, because you can never talk bad about your mother. That leads you to be ungrateful. That leads you to feel, you didn't appreciate her sacrifices, right?
Mm.
Because she's overglorified. But then you look at the ways that she's unsupported. Mother goes through, oftentimes there are so many single mothers that have two jobs just to, you know, kind of manage the responsibilities of being a mother and then playing the father that's missing, right? So society doesn't really support mothers in a lot of ways as well, right? So that's
Mm.
why it almost feels easier. That's why the father wound's not that sneaky
Yeah.
because you can. It's okay to criticize men. We criticize men all of the time. It's actually even between brothers. I'll pick apart my closest friend, guy friend all the time.
Hmm.
Because in some way, as men, iron sharpens iron. So there's a level of comfort in being able to look at you and kind of pick you apart and say,
Yeah.
"Damn, Adrian, what's going on, man? You're late 10 minutes. What the hell is going on? What?
Yeah.
Or
Right.
you didn't call me, or you didn't show up to our dinner, or you didn't come to my wedding, right? It's
Mm.
okay for me to like do that, and you might not internalize that as like, oh, this guy doesn't want to be my friend. There's a level of safety between men to go in that direction, right? To kind of address those things together. But so it's easier for me to go through that with my father, to kind of pick him apart and say he wasn't here for this, he wasn't there for that.
Yeah.
There's little because of these two things that I mentioned, it's very hard to do that with a mother wound. It's very hard to do that with a mother wound. The culture doesn't permit it. It's very, very taboo. Sometimes people do it in secrecy. They address these things between a therapist, but never talk about it out loud, right? And it's also at the end of the day, we're men. We still want to protect our mothers at the end of the day. And sometimes protecting her means protecting her from our criticism, protecting her from our judgment about the way that she raised us. In a
Yeah.
way, we're still protecting her. We don't want to hurt her.
Are you over 40, successful but unfulfilled? Do you feel stuck, like you're not truly living up to who you really are? So many high achievers wake up and think, I'm a good person, I read all the books, I listen to all the podcasts, yet there's something missing. Well, you're not alone. I've been there myself quite a few times. And quite frankly, it took a lot of years of really fucking around, trying to figure out what I now call your higher self blueprint, which has enabled me to live a life and make a living with my passions and my purpose. If you're ready to break free from a life that's holding you back, I'm hosting a free training around the 5 pillars of success that will enable you to create a more meaningful, fulfilling, and purposeful life. So click the link in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you in the training. But for now, let's get back to the podcast.
You know?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'm gonna have to really explore that to a deeper degree because it's part of the when you were just talking, some of the things that come up. I think, like as a child, my mum was the person that like my I always joke about this. My man-to-man talks were with my mum, right? So like all of
Oh,
my all of my like relationship problems, this girl treated me that way, or all that kind of stuff. And we used to talk about relationships, and mum used to always, she would always project onto me the type of man that I should be towards women. And for the most part
mm,
now, I realize that it was everything that my dad wasn't, right? So
interesting.
so that was an interesting thing. But I think like whenever it's almost like not to be saved but or rescued, but whenever there was an issue, it's just mum had the solution. My dad, I don't find growing up really had solutions to many things. I never got any kind of like stoic advice from about money or about health or about business, like nothing like that. It
Mm,
was kind
mhm,
of
mhm,
that really came from my mum, and I think later on in life I developed a sense, and this is when I say later on, like the last 10 years or so. I think I've developed some sort of a resentment to being rescued or having my problem solved. And probably now just thinking about it, this sounds like a fucking counseling session between you and I, but like, in the last 5 years, I've gone through a lot of loss. Like, I've lost business, my marriage. Like, there's a lot of things that are just, and I
mm,
needed to be saved. I needed to be rescued. I needed to
mhm,
depend on others. Like financially
mhm,
and even like housing and all that kind of stuff. When I decided to leave my marriage, like I really had nowhere to go. So I had to sort of like move in with
mm,
my brother um, and then my mum was moving, like had moved into with me, and then my brother moved out, and then like then
mm.
then my mum moved out. So it was this sort of evolution of like needing other people like to depend upon, right? So
Right, right.
maybe I don't know. I think I'm feeling now like I have this resentment to being saved. Like I want to solve all of the issues, and now that my life's coming back together, in relationship, in my health, in business, in finance, and stuff like that, I feel in charge. Like the demeanor that I have now is very much empowered and in control and optimistic and looking to the horizon and, like kicking ass and
Mm,
taking names, like I want to fucking make some
yeah,
moves.
yeah.
I'm 47, man. I lost everything and now I want to regain that back. I've got goals. And so I feel like that whole evolution has really changed for
Mm,
me. But I am thinking as I'm talking to you and listening to you that
yeah.
perhaps there's a part that maybe my mum wants to solve or do something, just sort of pick up after me or, um, you know, she might come to my home and see that I'm missing something, or she'll go out and she'll just buy it and put it in the house and
Right, right,
all these sorts of
right.
things. So I just feel like, oh, fuck, man, just let me do my thing. So like
Yeah.
I don't know, I have this kind of resentment to having problems solved. I don't want to be mothered. I don't know. That's definitely what's coming up for me anyway.
Mm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I've seen the same in my mother, and even I was just with my closest friend in Charlotte and saw his mother doing the same thing. I think it's mothers still trying to feel a value in your life as you've become a full-grown man.
Yeah.
You know,
But yeah, and there's a part of me who's still a little boy who wants to take care. And I want to
and that's the part she wants to see come to life. She
probably,
can't
yeah,
help it.
like I
Right, right.
now that I'm winning again, it's just kind of like, I want to provide. I want to be the person that says, here, like I've paid your rent for a year, or like I've done something for you. I've taken you in, or I've nurtured you and looked after you. I feel like that role reversal is happening, but
Right.
maybe there's a shift in that dynamic of like. There's obviously something I need to fucking work on, Jeremiah. So I need to sort my shit out some way, shape, or form. But anyway, that's just my thing. Not to make this interview about my own personal problems, but it's interesting that you brought that
I
up
think it's
because it's sort of
valuable.
almost now just coming to the surface for some unknown reason.
Yeah, I think it's valuable. I think a lot of men are still in that dynamic with their mothers. You know, and again, like we said, the mother wound is sneaky. Maybe some of them aren't even noticing it until you brought up some of these dynamics and these exchanges that you're noticing are happening, and even the resistance to it, right? I think it's giving life to a lot of men's experience, and I don't doubt that there's men exactly in that position right now. So I think it's really helpful. And most of my healing and growth has been with addressing that relationship with my mother. A lot of growth came from that. I give everything to being able to see some of those things. I matured at such a deep level, just acknowledging some of those things. Because, like I said, it's very, very difficult as a man to have that conversation with myself because there's such a level of reverence for the mother, just as an archetype. You know,
Mm,
she gives life. She gives life. It's
yeah.
so hard to say, well, but that's hard. Almost goes against you know, all instincts in a way, you know.
Yeah. It's funny when you're talking it out because I'm just thinking like for for me personally, again, just to extract from my own life, like I think I've really struggled with authority for most of my life, right? I have this distaste for being told what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
a large part of it is over the last sort of 10 or so years is been integrating my father back into my life and accepting him and allowing him to see him as a leader or to see him as an authority to allow him back into my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whereas, my mum, on the other hand, it's because of that dynamic that I explained when we were younger, she pretty much was like took the role of my father. And so,
Right, right.
and that actually shows up in my relationship, like it's interesting because it almost had like a, father role reversal, like relationship going on there where I was more of the
Mm-hmm.
subservient and she was more dominant.
That makes
Whereas things are
sense.
like completely flipped now. So it's like
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting evolution. Hey, fuck, we could go on forever about this dynamic called called life. It's amazing. Anyway, um, just finally, I think I'd love to know from your perspective, like my outside opinion of you, Jeremiah, is that you've got this beautiful understanding of yourself and the workings of the world, and you project it through your teaching, your programs, your conversations that I listen to. You have this inner, you have this sort of aura about you that is quite calm and deliberate and stoic, and it almost has. I don't want to say a feminine aspect to it, but it's this very soft, gentle kind of nature about you. You understand things, you listen intently. Like there's a large part of that I get from you. You correct me and stand in when I'm if you think I'm wrong. But
No, no, really.
also
No, continue.
there's a part of you that is in charge, is building a business, is traveling the world, is making an impact. So I guess I'm interested to find out how you think masculinity is portrayed, because when we think about masculinity, most people might think to a superhero who's just like, taking charge and kicking ass and all that kind of stuff. But in respect to the work that we've been discussing and the evolution of your own personal development, you strike me as the type of person who embodies like both a feminine, softer aspect and more, and also a masculine, stoic, calm, in control aspect as well. Am I making sense? It's
Mhm.
like, so how do you manage that? How do you find yourself maybe in particularly in relationship where is that a challenge to be too soft and too subservient or too relaxed? Or when it comes to business, are you kind of like, do you take your time with things, or do you when you go into work mode, do you like fucking kick ass it all day? Are you on a strict regimen of, I've got to achieve, I've got to kick goals, like how do
Mhm.
you kind of balance all of that out?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate the kind words and your reflections, man. It means a lot. It means a lot. I noticed that for me, there is an important balance as a man to embody warmth and to embody power and strength. If I only embody power and strength, my energy almost feels aggressive. It feels domineering, and it can also feel very like I'm a tyrant in a way.
Hmm.
I'm armored. Nobody can get through me. I'm unapproachable, right? And if I only embody warmth, which I have in my life, I've gone through both extremes. If I only embody warmth, that's just kind of like my comfort zone. And oftentimes people are going to feel that I'm a doormat, that they can kind of like say whatever and I'll just kind of go with it. That there's no spine to me, right? So what I find is really finding that balance within how do I nurture my warmth and how do I nurture my strength and my power, right? So I just view it through these very dual lenses.
Mm,
Is how am I creating pockets in my life to nurture and develop my warmth as a man? Because it's really important to embody that. Because I often think about what if I have a daughter and I'm unable to be warm, right? She brings me into the room and says, like, it's a tea party and gives me a tutu. If I can't just drop into that moment and wear the tutu, man, where have I gone wrong as a man, right?
yeah.
So it's like I need that warmth. I need to cultivate that, not just for myself, but the people that are closest to me. They need to feel my warmth. And then also, I'm grateful for my work because often I'm in positions where I have to learn to hold both. I have to learn how to hold both. So the power really helps because it builds a level of trust. Because the container that I'm holding, I have to embody a level of strength because people are going to collapse into my arms. They're going to unravel. They need to. This is why they're here. They need to collapse. They need to be like, oh, this is the first time I felt held in weeks, including men, right? They might not say that to me, but I'm watching happen. I'm watching the armor come off. I'm watching them become emotionally naked and open. And before I know it, they're just being held. So I need that power, and how I nurture that power, how I develop that is in what you said earlier. It's in my routines, it's in my practices. I have things that lead me and require me to push my body and to do difficult shit.
Hmm.
As simple as physical exercise. It's even from watching like UFC fights,
Yeah.
right? It cultivates something in a man. It boosts our testosterone because at the end of the day, we're not going to war. I'm not getting in a bloodied battle with another man, but
Mhm.
finding comfort, finding joy, finding fulfillment, and even meaning in witnessing it externalized, or even participating in it in any form that I can. If I sign up for a class, or if I watch, 300 for the 10th time, right? It helps me reconnect to something very, very primal within myself.
Yeah, so
So for
true.
me, I have to create those channels. I have to create those channels. I can't rely on them too much, but they have to be those pockets there. So for me, it's down to the clothing that I wear. It's down to the movies that I watched. It's like always a connection with those archetypes. I want to nurture that connection. I just watched Vikings. I don't know if you know the series on Netflix.
Mm. Yeah.
It's a masterpiece, man, a masterpiece. But again, I'm watching it very, very intentionally. I'm noticing the
Yeah.
king showing up. I'm noticing these warriors demonstrated, and I'm finding ways in which this is resonating with me. It's
Mm.
informing me of things about leadership, about fatherhood, about what it means to hold a kingdom. I don't see myself as a king, but I know there are going to be people that rely on me in my life.
Yeah.
So all these outlets are teaching me things, and then it's the physical aspect, like because that nurtures something in me emotionally and energetically, right?
Hmm.
Because it's funny, I'm talking about this and I'm talking about UFC. My thesis as a freshman in college was why boxing should be banned.
No
That
way.
was my thesis. That was really my thesis, right? I was like, I
Wow.
had this whole argument around why boxing should be banned. This is terrible. But again, it's in what I said. I lived in the other extreme. I was
Hmm.
all about the warmth. I was all about reverence to the feminine. The masculine is toxic. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But all of that was resistance to my father. It wasn't resistance to masculinity. It was resistance to my father's expression of
True.
masculinity.
Yeah.
So I've come a long way to even be able to watch these fights and enjoy them again and to have fun and to learn something from it, not just to watch mindlessly, but to learn something about brotherhood, about masculinity, about the struggles and the plight of men, right? So I'm creating these channels, and it helps me work through some of the emotional stuff. And then I have those challenges to work through some of those physical things, which is how can I push my body today? Do I take a cold shower? Do I sit in the sauna for 30 minutes? Do I go rock climbing? Do I try something new? Am I a beginner at something today? Right.
Yeah.
All of this helps me cultivate a relationship with holding myself, cultivating my strength, and building a connection to my dark masculine energy, that primal, wild, untamed energy that I don't want to show up in moments where it shouldn't be present. When I'm
Mm.
with a loved one, where I'm with a friend, or I'm upset or I'm triggered, I don't want that energy to leak out. I want to have control over it. I want to have a relationship with it. Because if I have a relationship with it, then there's communication. Oh, this is what's coming up. This is not the time. This is the time for this energy. So once I have that, so then these other pockets of my life where I'm nurturing my warmth is often in being around my family, being around my friends, especially brotherhood. Those are spaces where I feel a bit unpolished, and it feels great
Hmm.
to just like talk freely, speak freely, a little bit unedited, sometimes unhinged with some of my closest guy friends, right?
Yeah.
To not have to hold that armor of like, it's like I can be a boy at times. We can play video games. We can go play basketball. We can laugh about absolutely nothing, right?
Mm.
It's like, how can I nurture my warmth? How can I nurture the little boy in me in a way, And sometimes that shows up as creative expressions. I have art and channels that I explore, which has helped me cultivate some of that um, refined or more integrated feminine energy that you might pick up.
Hmm.
I was an artist for years, right?
Really?
So, So I have to be in touch with the feminine. It's where I'm channeling intuition and creativity.
Yeah.
So it's helped in a lot of ways, but I'm more intentional about it than ever now. About where am I cultivating my warmth as a man, and where am I nurturing my power and my strength as a man? Where are my channels? How am I making time for that? So that's what I think has helped me a lot. Be able to find that balance in my own way.
Yeah, amazing. That might be a good place to hit pause, and we'll come back again another time, man.
Yeah,
Mate, you are such a good guy to talk to and to listen to. It's really cathartic for me to have these conversations. So I applaud you for being honest and real and really exploring these parts of these conversations, which I think, men and women, but for me, it's a lot for a man to kind of sit through and kind of understand that life can be a bit messy at times and a bit chaotic, but it's we're always a student, and there's always room to kind of like learn and grow and grow into versions of yourself that you wish to become, even at any stage of life. So I appreciate you, brother. I think you're an amazing guy. I'll make sure I drop in all your links to your socials and courses and programs and all that kind of stuff. But until we meet again and have another chat, I'll thank you again. I'll talk to you soon. Okay.
all right, brother. It was great to connect again. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, mate. You have a great day.
And you too, brother.
Bye now.